The mess hall smelled of frying oil, coffee, and the faint metallic tang of gun oil that never quite left a Navy forward base. Lieutenant Arya Vale stood over a battered skillet, stirring powdered eggs with mechanical patience. She wasn't supposed to be here, at least not like this. The others thought she was taking recovery time after her last mission went sideways in Yemen. Her cover assignment as cook's assistant kept her off the roster and out of sight. The spatula clattered once against the pan as her earpiece hummed softly. She glanced around. The line of soldiers waiting for breakfast had dwindled to a few yawning privates. Outside, the desert sun had just started its brutal rise. Then the noise came, not the usual morning chatter, not the hum of a helicopter or the clang of trays. This sound was sharp, radio static followed by the clipped voice of the watch officer. SEAL Unit Bravo 7, respond. Repeat, Bravo 7, report your status. Her hand froze mid-motion. The spatula dripped yolk onto the counter. She turned her back to the window and adjusted the comms unit tucked into her collar. This is Lieutenant Vale. What's the situation? There was a pause. Then, Vale, you're not on duty. Situation, she snapped. Bravo 7 was on recon 3 clicks east of Ridge Point. We lost contact 12 minutes ago. Drone feed shows possible ambush. Multiple heat signatures. She exhaled slowly. Her team, the ones who thought she'd been benched for good. Arya's eyes flicked to the serving line where a few Marines were still joking about the eggs. Get me a location grid, she said, already pulling off her apron. Ma'am, command says to stand down. Recovery team en route, but she was gone before he finished. By the time she reached the armory, her pulse had leveled out to a combat rhythm. Calm, focused, every motion was familiar muscle memory. Plate carrier, sidearm, 2 mags, and her old carbine, dusty, tagged, but still hers. The corporal on duty stepped forward. Lieutenant Vale, I thought you were off the roster. She checked the rifle's chamber. Not today. He hesitated, then stepped aside. Everyone on base knew her reputation, though most had only heard the rumors, the SEAL officer who dragged 2 wounded teammates out of a burning helo under enemy fire. The one command had quietly reassigned after that mission. As she crossed the tarmac, a Humvee skidded to a stop beside her. Sergeant Pike leaned out the window, eyes wide. You're kidding me, ma'am. You're going out there alone. They're my team, she said simply. You coming? He blinked, then grinned. Hell yes, ma'am. The desert blurred past as they raced toward the ridge. The sun was fully up now, painting the sand in glaring golds and whites. Over the radio, fragments of chatter crackled, gunfire, then silence. Drone feed shows hostiles, Pike said. About 8 tangos, maybe more. Looks like they've got the team pinned inside a collapsed structure. Vale loaded her rifle. Then we go loud. They stopped a quarter mile out. The terrain was open, dotted with scraggly brush and jagged rock. She crawled up the final incline, scope raised. Through the glass she saw them, her team, huddled behind a half-crumbled wall, 2 wounded, 1 unconscious. A dozen armed insurgents circled them like wolves. Her heartbeat slowed again. Controlled breathing. 1, 2, 3, fire. The first shot cracked the still air. A hostile dropped instantly. Confusion rippled through the camp. Arya didn't pause. 3 more fell before they even found cover. Pike opened up from the flank, drawing attention while she advanced, sprinting low between dunes. Her boots hit the sand with precision, quiet, efficient, deadly. An enemy shouted in Arabic, raising his rifle. She didn't stop. The butt of her carbine slammed into his jaw, then her knife flashed once in the sunlight. He crumpled soundlessly. Vale, Pike's voice cut through the comms. Left side, 2 more. Handled, she replied, dropping one and rolling behind a rusted truck chassis. Smoke, dust, and adrenaline blended into one sharp taste on her tongue. Every sound was magnified, the click of her trigger reset, the hiss of wind over metal, the faint moan of one of her team calling for help. When she reached them, Chief Daniels looked up in disbelief. Arya, what the hell? No time, she said, cutting his restraints. You boys forgot to invite me. He gave a breathless laugh despite the blood on his shoulder. We thought you were on kitchen duty. I was, she said, firing 2 more shots past his ear. Breakfast shifts over. They fought their way out, a coordinated dance of violence and precision that only years of shared missions could forge. Pike's Humvee roared into view, mounted gun blazing. Arya dragged the wounded aboard while covering fire shredded the enemy line. As they sped away, explosions echoed behind them, small charges she'd set to wipe any trace of their escape. Daniels groaned from the backseat. "You blew their camp, standard cleanup," she said calmly. "Can't let them use our gear." Pike laughed. "Remind me never to mess with the cook again." Back at base, command waited, tight faces, clipped voices. The recovery team was still gearing up when Vale strode past them, dust-coated and silent. The CO stepped forward. "Lieutenant Vale, you directly disobeyed." She handed him her weapon. "And brought them back alive." For a long moment, the only sound was the faint hum of the mess hall generator behind them. Someone inside was still frying eggs. The CO exhaled, then gave a single nod. "Good work, Lieutenant." Dismissed. She turned without another word and walked toward the mess hall. The same skillet sat on the counter, still half full of eggs gone cold. She picked up the spatula again, cleaned it, and set it back in place. Pike appeared in the doorway, bruised but grinning. "Back to breakfast duty." She looked at him over her shoulder. "Somebody's gotta feed the seals," she said quietly, a faint smile tugging at her lips. Outside, the sun was climbing higher, but inside the mess hall, just for a moment, it felt calm again. The mess hall was silent except for the rhythmic scrape of steel wool on a skillet. Lieutenant Arya Vale scrubbed at the pan as if trying to erase the smell of gunpowder from her hands. Outside, the base hummed with the chaos of post-mission reports, choppers landing, medics shouting, boots clattering. She should have been among them, writing her own after-action report. But she wasn't sure how to explain what had just happened. Technically, she'd broken direct orders. Technically, she'd commandeered a vehicle, led an unauthorized rescue, and destroyed enemy infrastructure without clearance. Technically, she'd also saved 6 SEALs from being executed live on a rebel broadcast feed. The kitchen door creaked open. Commander Roth stepped in, still in his flight jacket. He didn't say anything at first. Just stood there, watching her clean. "You missed the debrief," he finally said. His tone wasn't angry, just sharp enough to slice the silence. "I wasn't invited," she replied, rinsing the pan. "You weren't supposed to be on the mission either." Arya set the skillet down, water dripping from her fingertips. "Then I guess we're both surprised." Roth sighed. "You went dark for an hour and a half. Command thought we lost you too." "Pike said you took point under heavy fire." "I did what had to be done," she said simply. He studied her for a long moment. "You've always done that. That's what scares them." He dropped a file on the counter, thick, stamped with red ink, classified, Phantom Protocol. Arya's expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened. "That file's supposed to be sealed." "Was," Roth said, "until Command reviewed your helmet cam footage. The way you moved out there, those tactics weren't standard issue SEAL ops. They were Phantom 7. She dried her hands slowly. "I told you I burned that designation." "You can't burn ghosts, Lieutenant," he said softly. "You are the reason the Phantom program was shut down." Her silence confirmed it. The Phantom Protocol, an elite black ops division so covert most SEALs thought it was a myth. Operatives trained for zero visibility warfare, infiltration without ID, no backup, no trace. They didn't exist on paper. Vale had been one of the last. And now, despite her efforts to stay buried behind a mess hall stove, she'd exposed herself again. Roth opened the file. Inside were stills from drone footage. Her silhouette in the sand, precision kills, calculated movement. "You didn't just save your team," he said. "You shut down an entire insurgent cell. The Pentagon wants to know how a cook on medical leave pulled that off." "I used what I remembered," she said. "Muscle memory doesn't retire." He nodded. "They're requesting your reinstatement. Phantom Division, active duty." Arya's eyes lifted, sharp as glass. "There is no Phantom Division anymore." He leaned closer. "Maybe not officially, but someone up top wants to rebuild it. Quietly. You know what that means." She looked past him toward the window where sunlight spilled across a tray of cooling bread. "It means I get to disappear again." The door swung open suddenly. Sergeant Pike stood there, bandaged arm in a sling, grinning like he'd just gotten away with something. "Permission to enter the world's most dangerous kitchen." Roth gave him a look, but Pike ignored it. "Lieutenant, the team's asking for you. Chief Daniels won't shut up about how you dropped 3 hostiles before they blinked." Arya smirked faintly. "Daniels exaggerates. It was 2.5. Still," Pike said, leaning on the doorframe, "the boys wanted me to tell you, they're alive because of you." And they're requesting a name for the operation. I thought command names the ops. They do, Pike said, lowering his voice, but this one's unofficial. We're calling it Breakfast Raid. That made her laugh, quiet and real. The sound felt strange after the last few hours. Roth allowed himself a small smile too. Don't get too comfortable, Lieutenant. Orders or not, they'll debrief you in DC within 48 hours. That night, she couldn't sleep. The barracks lights flickered out one by one until the base settled into its uneasy desert quiet. She sat on her cot, polishing her sidearm, every motion automatic. Her locker sat open. Inside, beneath a folded uniform and her old SEAL insignia, was a patch wrapped in black cloth. She hesitated, then unwrapped it. A fox's head, silver thread on matte gray. The emblem of Phantom 7. She turned it over in her hands, remembering the last time she'd worn it. Dust storms, static-laced comms, and the voice of her team leader whispering through the dark, once a phantom, always unseen. But she had been seen today. Exposed. And that meant someone would come looking. The next morning, she was back in the mess hall before dawn. Same skillet, same eggs, only this time, she wasn't alone. Daniels limped in, still pale but smiling. Pike followed, carrying trays. The rest of Bravo 7 trailed behind, bruised but alive. Permission to eat, chef. Daniels joked. Only if you can handle my cooking, Arya said. As she served them, they joked. And laughed, their voices filling the quiet room. But Roth's voice echoed in her memory, they want Phantom back. She looked out the window again. A military transport jet had landed on the far end of the airstrip. Two figures in dark suits stepped out, flanked by security. They weren't here for breakfast. Her gaze hardened. Boys, she said, drying her hands, keep your forks down for a minute. Pike frowned. Something wrong. She nodded toward the runway. Tell command I'll report to DC on my own terms. Daniels raised a brow. Meaning? Arya smiled slightly. Meaning they'll have to find me first. By the time Roth reached the mess hall 15 minutes later, the skillet was cold again, and the room empty. On the counter lay her apron, folded, spotless, and the silver Phantom patch resting on top. Roth picked it up and exhaled. So the ghost walks again, he muttered. Outside, a single Humvee was missing from the motor pool, its tracks leading into the open desert. The same direction she'd taken yesterday, toward the horizon, where missions began and ghosts never died. Hours later, a secure transmission blinked onto Roth's console. Encrypted message. Source unknown. Greater than Commander. Breakfast was served. Mission complete. Don't follow. Night Fox. Roth leaned back, staring at the call sign. The name she hadn't used in years. Somewhere out in the dunes, the woman who'd just wanted to cook in peace was already moving toward her next silent war. And this time, she wasn't just fighting back. She was hunting.